Hey YouTube, hey Facebook, 4 minutes. We're gonna get rocking and rolling here. I saw all those YouTube comments wondering if we're gonna make it actually work this time. I told you we would pull it off. Anyways, 3 minutes, 45 seconds. I'll be live with you all. Good to see you guys over Gary Wheeler, Scott Davis, Steve Hammond, Joanna Brown over on YouTube. Great to see you over there. Facebook, where you at? Leave some comments as well so we can chat with you guys. Let's give some shout outs over to YouTube. Username Piper Archer 2 Flyer joining us on the cruise. Excited about that. Rob, great to see you. Patrick said just giving me a hard time. Patrick, like you said, I'm just building suspense, man. It's all about suspense and marketing, right? Anyways, username Rookie Pilot. I like that username. Everyone's like a rookie pilot, a student pilot. From New Jersey, representing, we're talking all about Essex County, New Jersey today for the most part. Nancy in Wisconsin. Hope to see you at Oshkosh, Nancy. Over on Facebook, Joe Rainey in Vegas. Great to see you. Awesome. Dick in Texas. Great to see you. Awesome. Joseph in Illinois. Hope you are doing well. Hey, Matt Olson on YouTube. Great to see you. Krell Black, Chester City, PA. Good to see you, man. Joseph, great to see you. Paul R on YouTube. Great to see you. Milford, Mass. Peter, great to see you. Peter, did you know I went to Bridgewater State College? It was Bridgewater State College back then. Now it's Bridgewater University. And flew out of the New Bedford Airport quite a bit. West Palm Beach, Screenman 2000. Good to see you. Kelly Pilot in Georgia. Kelly Elizabeth in Tampa, not too far from us. We're up in Ocala. Great to see you. Virginia and Ontario, Canada. Now we're talking somewhere cold. Good to see you as well. 20 seconds, we're going to get rolling. Cannon, Coach Ray, Rick, Joe, all great to see you over on Facebook. Lamont, Seattle, Washington. Hope you are doing well. Anyways, 10 seconds. We might as well just get started early. We pilots are on-time people, so let's go ahead. Let's get started just a little bit early. M0A Nation, welcome. I want to first apologize. I know I had we had 200 on Facebook and like 360 something over on YouTube, all waiting. And literally our internet crashed. We could not get it back up for hours, but we are live with you all now for take 2 of the JFK Jr. accident analysis. It's actually appropriate. I saw a few of you over on YouTube chatting earlier. By the way, when I'm looking this way, I can see YouTube chat, Facebook chat over there as well. So do say hi so I can give you a shout out as well. I saw you all hanging out there. We lost our internet, and this is take 2. And it's appropriate, I was saying, because I did do this accident analysis, at least look at this accident many, many years ago, as in like 2016. It feels like many years ago now. Total new simulation, new facts, new data. Actually, if we can go back, let me go back to See that image there in the hexagon? That is actually the instrument panel that was recovered from the ocean. So some more unreleased photos, everything else, just there's always something to learn. We say a good pilot is always learning. Well, it's so much more than just a catchy slogan. Let's give some shout outs to Maddie over in Vail, Barry from New Orleans. Good to see you. Over on YouTube again, Larry in SFZ, good to see you, my friend. Matthew, Bruce, Larry, great to see you. Over on Facebook, Jack CM Watts. Hey Neil, great to see you. 1 a.m. in Ireland. Neil is always a champ. We put on a live stream, that man is there. Good to see you, Neil, as well. Dale, Mags. Hey Adam Saylor, great to see you. Okan in Chicago, hope you are doing well. Hey, my good buddy, my RV9A builder and owner, Mark. Hope you and Ruth are doing well. Tell Ruth I say hi. We care more about Ruth than we do you, Mark. I mean, no offense. She's just the prettier of the two. John, good to see you. Brett West, hey, good to see you, Brett West. Jim, Thomas, James Webb, great to see you. Hey, real quick, before we get into all of this too, please make sure you're subscribing to m0a.com here on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Also on the right-hand side of your screen, if you want some behind-the-scenes type stuff as to what we're doing, follow us on Instagram. You can literally scan that as the name tag there on Instagram just to get updates on all of that, see the stories, and everything else. So super cool. Walter in New Jersey, great to see you. Netherlands saying hi, good to see you as well. Jeremy said, waiting for this one for a long time. Thank you for taking the time to do this. We are here for you, my friend. Speaking about being here for you, we are coming to you live from literally the spare bedroom right now. We moved a big chunk of the studio here into the spare bedroom, so forgive the lighting's off or the audio's echoey or anything like that. It's not the studio, it is the spare bedroom. As I know many of you are stuck at home like myself, I did go out and go for a walk and get a little bit of sunshine today. I want to make sure you're taking time to continue to learn, and that's something we're working on here by sharing the JFK Jr. accident analysis. I just want to share a few little things. Make sure that you know we produce 4 podcasts, by the way. The private pilot podcast, the instrument pilot podcast, the commercial pilot podcast, the flight instructor podcast. One new episode each week, essentially. Private Pilot Podcast, it's a new episode. Next week, Instrument Pilot Podcast. Search those names, search M0A in the iTunes store. You can find all of that information there with that. I also want to share, too, what our schedule is going to be for these upcoming live streams. So that way you can really plan for them. Of course, tonight you are here, 8 p.m. Eastern, JFK Jr. Accident Analysis. Tomorrow, same place, same time. I'm going to be taking you through how I do a weather brief in ForeFlight. Saturday, this is all consecutive. Saturday, same night, I don't know if you know this, we made a movie called Flying Again, where I work with 8 rusty pilots on their journey back towards proficiency. I am going to stream that movie out to you live with some commentary, some behind the scenes, a few little breaks in it as well. It's 88 minutes, it's shot like a documentary on that journey working with rusty pilots, and it's super cool because you know one of them probably quite well, which is Ariel Tweedo from Flying Wild Alaska. And that's our journey of getting her back in the cockpit after Flying Wild Alaska. She took about 3 years off, and it was our job to get her back into the cockpit. Then Tuesday, April 14th, again, right here, YouTube and Facebook, 8 p.m. is the Ask Jason Anything. And literally on Facebook, on YouTube, you can ask any of those questions. The favorite one is, why does Jason wear 2 watches? We won't answer that tonight. Some of you know that answer. We made a whole video on that. So my goal here tonight is to do just this. We are going to recreate the JFK Jr. accident. I want to put you in the shoes of Mr. JFK Jr. I want you to be in the mindset, in the decision-making process that he was making that day. I don't like talking about accidents, but I believe we're doing the pilots involved in the accidents a disservice if we don't take the time to learn from them. Let's give a few more shout outs, then I'm gonna dive right into it. Again, I can see everybody over here on YouTube first. Thank you, Rookie Pilot. Said audio's good, lighting's good. John, Jeremy, Glenn, Alex, great to see you. Eric Deagle, my top fan, great to see you. He's looking forward to the movie night. Hey, Jared, great to see you. Sad we're not gonna see you at Sun and Fun. Hopefully, Oshkosh my good friend. Patty, nice to see you. Interesting, sad but interesting story over there. Hey, Terry Haskins, good to see you. Lifetime professional student pilot. Terry, that is the right attitude to have. Username Sazzy, great to see you. Ronald Stillwell, great to see you from Florida. Let's dive into it. Our accident today, we know it essentially becomes VFR into IMC. And I say the term VFR loosely because as we're going to learn, this flight departed actually barely VFR and progressively got worse and worse. By the way, anytime you have questions, I'm happy to answer them out over here. So ask them as we go through, or you can certainly save them to the end. Like any accident, we hear about it the next day, and all we think about, oh, JFK Jr. crashed into the ocean, and that's what we hear. But we don't realize that there is a chain of events, or maybe you do, there's a chain of events that lead up to each and every accident. One thing you may not realize is the chain of events doesn't always start the day of the accident. Sometimes that chain of events could start days, months, years even ahead of that accident. In the case of Mr. JFK Jr., it is just merely days. On June 1st, 1999, JFK Jr. fractured his left ankle in a hang gliding accident. The next day, he underwent surgery. I'm talking screws, rods, pins type of surgery for the fracture. Then, on June 23rd, he was issued, his hard cast was taken off, and he was issued a cam walker. This is technically an air cast, so doctors don't be mad at me. It was hard, I couldn't really find a cam walker, but you get the idea of it. A cam walker, it's a boot, essentially. Very, very similar to an air cast. Broke our left ankle, underwent surgery. 23 days later, we're given, the hard cast is taken off, and we're given a cam walker, air cast, essentially. This sounds, why would I even bring this up? This unfortunately is going to prove very important towards the end of our accident here. Okay, continuing on with our story, I think we also need to understand the training involved in this. For our private pilot certificate, remember this accident happens in 1999. For our private pilot certificate, we started our training October 4th of 1982. During that time for our private pilot certificate, JFK Jr. flew with 6 different CFIs over a 6-year period and logged 47 hours. Doing the math on that is 7 hours per year. I don't know the specifics of all that. I'm sure there was years where he didn't fly and there's years where he got right back into it. And you all might be able to relate to this. Maybe your private pilot certificate took a little bit longer than you wanted to as well. A weird red flag for me, it's maybe not a huge high red flag, but it's something to point out. 6 different CFIs over a 6-year period. This has happened to me. I was doing my commercial pilot training, 2006, 2007, where the airlines were taking anybody with 250 hours in a heartbeat. I went through 8 different CFIs for my commercial pilot training. I would literally get one CFI, and then they'd head off for the airlines. And my question every time new CFI I got was, what hiring pool are you in right now? Oh, I'm in the Delta hiring pool. They'd call me any day. And just like that, they'd be gone. It was a 141 school, and they were just pumping in and pumping out. Good school. But that was just the phase. 2008 comes around, you could find plenty of CFIs, unfortunately. So I've been there. And I know the difficulties of having that many different CFIs is this CFI knows I'm really, really strong at steep turns. This one doesn't know that. In fact, I'm really weak at slow flight, and they don't know that either. And they want to do like this retest almost just to see, and rightfully so. If I'm taking on a new student, one of the first things I want to do is evaluate where they are in their training. I spent a lot of money doing these reevaluations just for another CFI to know I was good. So 6 different CFIs over a 6-year period. What was it like during that 1982 economic times? Or was this more of a, I don't like this CFI, I'll bounce to this CFI? We don't know those answers. It's just something I simply want to put out there. The pilot's, third bullet point there, the pilot's estimated flight time. Now, I have to say estimated flight time in the aircraft because Once he became a private pilot, he essentially stopped logging hours. It's not what I would do. You know, I have a ton of hours, but I still try to be pretty diligent with my logbook. I'll fall behind like everybody does, but then catch back up. So we kind of stopped logging flight time. So the estimated flight time in the Saratoga, the accident aircraft, was 37 hours. Only 3 solo and 0.8 at night. Now, how does our accident essentially occur? Yes, there's 2 other passengers on board. We'll talk about that in a second. But essentially, sole pilot on board, and it ends up occurring at night, where we're weakest in the accident aircraft from a time and an hour standpoint. The Saratoga is a lot of airplane. Last bullet point there is the CFI had to help him taxi just weeks earlier. So here's Mr. JFK Jr. taking instrument lessons with his cam walker, to say the least. And the CFI was quoted saying, hey, we were coming up to the taxiway, we had to make a left turn. He didn't have the strength nor the dexterity with a boot on to apply the right amount of pressure to make the left turn, and I had to jump on the pedals before we started hitting lights and signs, essentially. I'm paraphrasing a little bit of what that CFI actually said. If you are one of my students or one of my former students or one of our ground school members and you're watching this, don't show up to a flight lesson if you have a broken left ankle. I think that goes with the I'm safe checklist, right? I mean, the I is for illness. I think a broken ankle, it fits in the illness category. Now we think of illness, we think of sinus infections and ear infections and colds and that sort of stuff, but a broken left ankle is probably a no-go decision for me. But again, who am I to judge that? Okay, let's continue on here. Now, our route that we're going to be taking here, if we were to draw a direct line, by the way, we're going to be departing, here's my cursor, we're going to be departing Essex County, New Jersey. And if we were to draw a straight line to our destination of Martha's Vineyard, followed by Hyannis, this is about what you would get here. Right through the Long Island Sound, everything on else, on out of here. Now, if you look further, the airspace, though, if you draw a straight line, you're talking to Teterboro, you're talking to LaGuardia, you're talking to JFK, you're talking to just about everybody on the way out of here if you want to get to any decent altitudes. Well, this is actually not the route that JFK Jr. took. He took a more northerly route towards the Hudson River and then decided to kind of work his way back down. And I have a few theories with this I'll share once we get to the actual simulation and recreation of the accident here. Some more backstory first. No flight plan was filed or proper weather briefing was actually received. All we do know is that does anybody remember those WSI weather computers? If they still even exist, they're dusty in the corner with a huge CRT monitor attached to it in some FBO or some flight school. But they used to have these things called WSI, and they're just weather briefing computers. Someone went over and they logged everything. You didn't have to actually log in, but they logged everything that was searched. Well, this day that we're flying on is just a terrible day. Visibility reported as low as 4 statute miles in haze most of the day. No one was flying out of Essex County that day. All we know is someone went over to that WSI computer and pulled up a METAR for Essex County and for Martha's Vineyard. That's it. Not a TAF, not an area forecast. We still had those back then, nothing like that. Just a METAR for each airport. We are assuming it was JFK Jr. Literally no one else was flying that day. As I shared earlier, visibility along that route was reported as low as 4 statute miles in haze. Now let's go back. Our route, like a bunch of you said over on YouTube and Facebook, like Robert said, it's almost completely over water if you take that route. And you are exactly right. So visibility along this route that's going to be mostly over water is 4 statute miles in haze. I made a no-go decision way back at the broken ankle. I don't know about you, but 4 statute miles in haze, flying over water, all of these things just add. Can you see the links in a chain of events to a potential accident that's building? Unfortunately, it gets just a little bit worse. This one really breaks my heart. The CFI called him. He knew he was flying. So some more backstory to this. JFK Jr. said, hey, I have to fly, I have to drop off my sister-in-law at Martha's Vineyard, and then we're heading on to a wedding at Hyannis. This is just, it's what we're doing. We've got to go. I have to be there. So the CFI said, listen, Mr. JFK Jr., I don't mind hanging out at Hyannis or Martha's Vineyard or wherever you need me. I'm happy to come along. Let's call it an instrument cross country. We're working on our instrument anyways. Let's do that here. And perhaps the biggest kicker was JFK Jr.'s response over the phone. His exact words, as quoted by his CFI in the paper, I want to do it alone. This, by the way, is an actual photo of the Saratoga. It's not just a grainy Saratoga photo. That is the accident airplane right there, November 9253, November. I want to do it alone. Are we seeing, I don't know JFK Jr., so I don't want to portray anything upon him, but are we seeing perhaps maybe some hazardous attitudes maybe emerging here a little bit? It breaks my heart as a flight instructor to hear, hey, I'm happy to come along with you. I'm happy to fly with you. I'll hang out at Martha's Vineyard. I'll hang out at Hyannis, wherever you need. I'll stay out of the way, whatever you need me to do. Let's make an instrument cross country. And the response on the other end of that phone is, I want to do it alone. As a CFI, what do you say? I mean, it's your student. Oh, by the way, your student's JFK Jr. on top of it. It takes a lot of guts for a CFI to stand up to something like that. And unfortunately, we're hearing it from the CFI's perspective with this. I want to do it alone. Are we building perhaps a macho, hazardous attitude? Again, I never knew JFK Jr. I can't forecast or portray such a attitude upon somebody. I don't think that's fair, but on this statement alone, it really, really breaks my heart. So with that, let's dive into our simulation here and let's recreate it. Welcome to the Essex County Airport, Essex County, New Jersey. Charlie, Delta, Whiskey. I've actually done a seminar at Essex County. I've done this very seminar at Essex County Airport in Essex County, New Jersey, and a big, for a flying club there. Now, I need you to remember this. 23 days earlier, we were issued a cam walker. That's going to prove important here. Let me come back to that. What you're seeing first, since you can't hear it, this is, by the way, our recreation of this, and I'll explain more how this came to fruition here in just a bit. What you would be hearing are the only 2 radio calls JFK Jr. made. He called ground and got his taxi clearance. He called tower and got his takeoff clearance, and that was it. And he was just continuing on. By the way, Bob Cam on Facebook, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. So here we are getting ready to take off. Now I'll keep the simulation going, but I'll let it run here for a second as I share something. There was nobody flying at the Essex County Airport that day. The weather you're going to see is the real weather, and it's going to deteriorate the same way. In fact, there was no one flying. That kind of group of guys that just hangs out at the airport? They're just like always there, right? They exist at every airport. I don't care where you are. Well, the same good old boys were hanging out at the airport, and they heard doors shutting and cars door closing and airplane doors closing, and they said to themselves, who on earth is out there? So they went to the window, and they peered through the window, had to look through the haze, and they saw somebody, they said, on crutches, loading bags into the back of a red and white Piper Saratoga. The gentleman was on crutches with a boot on his left foot. You can find the newspaper clippings that confirm this. And as he's loading this, 2 ladies get in the plane, his sister-in-law and his wife, and then an interesting thing happens. If you look, and if you've ever flown a low-wing aircraft like this, let's see when it comes back around here, how do we get into a Piper Saratoga or a Cherokee 140 or anything? We're given a flyby here, but as you'll notice, there's a tiny little step on the right wing. See my cursor? Right down over here. So if you've ever gotten in a Cherokee product like this, or a Cirrus or anything like that, you know what we're talking about. You grab the handle and then you step on the air step. However, what foot do you step with? You step with your left foot. Well, JFK Jr. tried that, realized he was in too much pain and couldn't do such. So he threw his crutches in the back, sat his butt, down on the flap and proceeded to scoot backwards on the wing root up and scoot himself backwards into the pilot seat. That's someone who is dedicated to making this flight today, if I ever heard of it. Dedicated to make this flight with our boot and all. Remember, 23 days ago, we just broke our left ankle, and now we're scooting ourselves into the cockpit. Now, upon this departure, the weather you're seeing, the haze is all the same, just like you would see it here. Upon takeoff, the temperature and the dew point, if he would have checked that METAR, he would have known, were simply 1 degree apart. Now, let me ask you this. The sun is going to be setting soon. This flight happens in the evening, we know, into the night. That wasn't the intention, by the way. More on that in a bit. With the temperature and the dew point 1 degree apart, what is going to happen as the sun continues to set? Is that visibility going to get better, or is it going to get worse? You guessed it exactly. It's going to get worse and worse here, as you can imagine. So, as we continue on here, I mentioned earlier, JFK Jr. takes a very northerly route, and I'll show you that on a map here in just a bit, up towards the Hudson River. And I believe his idea is quite sound. He wants to make it down to, as we're approaching here now, the Long Island Sound. And it's actually a decent idea, because if we make it to the Long Island Sound like this, we can, and by the way, you see the airport down to the left there. That's the New Haven, Connecticut airport. We're going quite fast, as you can imagine, with time lapses and everything else and cutting ahead. This idea is decent. Keep the land off my left, keep the Long Island Sound and any other, if I can see Long Island, off to my right. And it's pretty much a straight shot. That's not bad. And we actually minimize our time over water when it comes time to go across to Martha's Vineyard. I drew it, it's about 12 nautical miles across open ocean if we had to actually do that. Now back to that point, we passed the New Haven, Connecticut airport. I want you to watch for how many airports we pass. How many opportunities to land? How many opportunities? Remember who this is. This is JFK Jr. We have opportunities to land. I'm JFK Jr. I could call my Lear 25 pilot and say, hey, I'm at the New Haven, Connecticut airport right now. Could you swing by and get me? The weather's just too bad. I had to divert here. I'm gonna leave the plane here overnight. Do you mind coming and get me and bring in the sister-in-law and my wife onto Martha's Vineyard and then Hyannis, please? Or the helicopter or whatever else we have access to. This is someone with access to more than just a Piper Saratoga, right? Which is, by the way, is a super airplane and was basically brand new, certainly to him at this time. So again, I shared earlier, this flight was never meant to depart this late. The fact that the temperature and the dew point are 1 degree apart is very, very unfortunate. And the sun is setting. As the temperature and the dew point get closer and closer, the weather is going to deteriorate more and more. This flight was never supposed to depart this late. In fact, we believe, based on interviews with family, that JFK Jr. was over 2 hours delayed, stuck in traffic, trying to get to the airport. That was later confirmed with another pilot who was heading to the airport to do paperwork, where he said, I was just going to the airport to do paperwork. I took a similar route that JFK Jr. would have driven to the airport. There's an accident. I was stuck in traffic for over 2 hours. What kind of mood are you when you've been stuck in New York traffic, New Jersey traffic for 2 hours, or any traffic for that matter, for 2 hours? You're not a good one, and you're probably not passing an I'm safe checklist on top of that. Let me show you a map real quick, just to kind of recap what we've done and where we've been so far so you can see it, because we took a different route than you would expect. We departed Essex County, New Jersey, and we went out a little bit to the northeast, roughly. We hit the Hudson River. And all this is done at 1,500 feet, by the way, kind of scud running underneath this layer. We make it out towards Bridgeport, kind of New Haven, Connecticut. That's where we hit the Long Island Sound out, and we're flying the Long Island Sound. And I believe he took this route for one of two reasons. One, probably didn't want to talk to anybody, as we're going to talk about and learn here in a bit. he made 2 radio calls. That's it. And secondly, maybe he had the idea of, when I make it to the Long Island Sound, maybe the weather will get better. Because we are flying this entire thing at 1,500 feet in 4 statute miles in mist. It's legal VFR, barely by 1 statute mile, right? As we're continuing to scud run, as the sun is beginning to set, the temperature is getting closer to that dew point, and the weather is going to get worse and worse. In this simulation, all his erratic altitudes, he bumped up in altitude. I'll explain why here in just a bit. That's from a primary radar data. The weather's going to deteriorate just like it did. So when he made it to the Long Island Sound, the weather got a little bit better. Visibility was still bad, but the ceiling lifted. And he was essentially just hugging the ceiling. Watch the altimeter, it's all over the place. That's not a poor job by the pilot who flew the simulation. This is based on primary radar data that his altitude was just all over the place. We believe he was just hugging the bottom of this cloud layer, just kind of riding the bottom of it and taking any altitude it would actually give him. Now, keep in mind here, this is a pilot, by the way, with no instrument rating. In fact, he had started his instrument training shortly before this accident flight. His CFI, the same CFI he said, "I want to do it alone" to, was quoted again saying it took him 3 times, talking about JFK Jr., it took him 3 times to pass instrument lesson number 1, which was basic VOR tracking and navigation, which we're quizzed on, by the way, during our private pilot check ride as well. 3 times to pass lesson number 1, very early on in the instrument training. And we're flying around in a high-performance aircraft where we feel we have to be somewhere in weather we probably shouldn't be in at all. Let me give you another recap of where we're at from Bridgeport, following the Long Island Sound, continuing all the way on down. We'll pick it up now in like Groton, New London, Connecticut type area as we continue on. Now, flying this route, you can see Long Island to the right, Connecticut over to our left. It's a decent little route here. If we have an engine failure, I have places to go. I'm not ditching it in the water or anything. And again, I can follow the land. It works for a VFR only pilot. However, as we get a little bit closer, something interesting happened. Again, JFK Jr. wasn't talking to anybody throughout this. As we get closer to PVD, Providence, Rhode Island, they have an approach. I can't remember the exact approach, but you come in over the water with this. JFK Jr. went blazing right through the localizer of the approach at Providence, which they very much were using in weather like this. In fact, I believe it was a United aircraft. I can't remember the type of aircraft, but I believe it was United, was on that localizer shooting that approach on in. And Providence Approach calls it out and says, hey, I've got a target I'm not talking to. He's going right through the localizer right now, 12 o'clock. And United pauses, and he looks, and he looks, and he looks, and finally, he calls traffic in sight, and the United pilot's exact words were, I don't know who that guy is, but he doesn't belong up here today. That person going right through the localizer at Providence, right in front of a United airliner, was none other than JFK Jr. on his way to Martha's Vineyard. Now, as we get closer and closer, we'll start to see Block Island, Rhode Island come into play. And it's at Block Island where we make another poor decision, as if we haven't been making poor decisions this entire time, unfortunately. And that's not to speak poorly of the pilot. I'm just pointing out the chain of events that happen here. Again, altitude, as you can see, all over the place. It's about Block Island where our pilot realizes, I'm starting to see the moon. The sun is starting to set. I need to get there. I need a shortcut. I need to go direct. And it's about that time over Block Island, Rhode Island, which has an airport, by the way, he decided to go direct. And he goes direct, and anybody who has flown at night over a body of water, or geez, how about even over a sparsely populated area, knows what I'm talking about, even when it's VFR, when I say black on black. You know exactly what I mean. When you're flying and it is just black on black, you cannot see anything. And that's what we're getting to now as we fast forward to nighttime. We depart Block Island and we continue on through. You're going to see the wings start to wobble kind of back and forth here as spatial disorientation starts to slowly sneak its way in here. Many of you asking, I see, you're talking about, do they have an autopilot? Well, we did have an autopilot. It's my belief that JFK Jr. did not know how to use the autopilot. It is our understanding, based on NTSB reports, that the autopilot was not used in this case. You can tell by the wings wobbling kind of back and forth here. I'll show you the instruments here in just a bit so we can really work and practice our instrument scan before things get rapidly out of control here. As you can see, we're now diving to the left, 2,000 feet, passing through airspeed, pushing through the yellow at the red. That descent now arrested a little bit as that nose starts to work its way on up. Continue our way up, and to the right, breaking down, but we save it. We're kind of good. We're saving it here. Good, and our nose is down just a little bit. Airspeed picking up here just a little bit. Again, down and to the left, losing some altitude, but we will save it here maybe, don't you worry. But look at that bank angle. That bank angle to the left, we are arresting that bank just a little bit. Airspeed still in the yellow. This is a lot to be doing in the yellow arc. Over to the right, over to the right, over to the right, over to the right, and down and around we go, 2,000 feet per minute, just like that. There goes 2,000 feet per minute. The irony of this, for me, it comes back to this guy right here. We were essentially it was somewhere in between a graveyard spiral and a spin to the right. In either circumstance, what do I need desperately if I'm doing anything extreme to the right? Usually one of the first things is going to be some left pedal. I'm not saying if JFK Jr. didn't break his left ankle, he would be here today, but I am telling you, it's certainly ironic to me. Let me explain a graveyard spiral really quick by using 2-3 Mike Zulu here for you. By the way, I saw someone was being a little salty over on YouTube. Thank you for handling that. I was trying to focus on that and not trying to ban and block people. It looks like you guys handled it on YouTube. Thank you for that. Graveyard spiral we were talking about. Graveyard spin's different. Graveyard spiral. So if we turn to the right, yet we have a little bit of a descent. Let's say I'm in a steep turn to the right and I'm losing a little bit of altitude. Well, the right thing to do, or should I say the correct thing to do, if I'm losing a little bit of altitude in a turn like this, is actually to take a little bit of the bank out and then I can pick the nose up a little bit. However, a tendency, and this is one of the many types of spatial disorientation, the tendency when I'm in a steep turn like this, and my nose drops a little bit, I look at the vertical speed, I look at the altimeter, and I see I'm descending. So what do? I pull back on the yoke. What does pulling back on the yoke do? It tightens up the turn. What does tightening up the turn do to my rate of descent? It increases my rate of descent. So what do? I pull back even more, which does more of what? Tightens up the turn, which does more of what? Increases the descent rate. Can you see the vicious cycle that a graveyard spiral can be? I believe he was somewhere in between. I believe it might have started as a graveyard spiral, led into a spin. Obviously, there's no black boxes or anything like that to look back into. It impacted the ocean, destroys a lot of those key bits of evidence as well. So it's tough to actually tell and know. It's my belief it was somewhere in between a graveyard spiral and a spin. The reason I say that is the airspeed. The impact was very, very fast. Typically, if you've ever done a spin, you can be pointing nose down at the ground and indicating 35. Now you're falling much faster than that, but that's just what you're actually indicating in the pitot tube because perhaps that wing is actually stalled. So that's an answer we'll probably never actually have here. But either way, an unfortunate circumstance. And again, I am not taking this lightly. I'm simply just sharing the facts and the evidence. I know a few people were a little salty over on YouTube. I don't know what they're so salty about, but thank you, M0 Nation, for handling that. Let's build the chain of events of the accident here. For me, like I said, it starts with the broken ankle. It starts with the broken ankle. 23 days before this accident, it starts with the broken ankle. Second to me is the get there-itis. You are JFK Jr. You are heading to a wedding. Everyone's expecting you to be there. Everyone's expecting you to make a toast. Whatever it may be, you feel you have to be there. By the way, you were stuck in a traffic jam. What kind of attitude and mood are you in after you're stuck in a traffic jam? It's not a good one. I promise you that. You're running 2 hours behind. Yeah, you're not feeling so good about yourself with that. Next link, little night experience. Here's what we know. There could be more. I know it takes 3 hours to earn your private pilot certificate, right? Flying at night. And we know he had 0.8 in the accident aircraft. So we know for a fact, based on his logbook, he had 3.8 hours at night. He may have had more, but we don't know. But there's not a person on this webinar who won't agree with this statement that flying at night, it could be a VFR night, I don't care. Flying at night over the ocean, over the desert, over a sparsely populated area is black on black, and you might as well be IFR. Hunter, who heads our support team up as a first officer for United as well, always had a professor back when he was learning to fly say there really is no such thing as night VFR, because it is all just, you're on the instruments. There is no, in fact, the actual definition of IFR flying, yes, there's a weather definition, less than 3 miles, everything else, but the actual definition is flying without reference to a horizon. Now that's not necessarily for logging time, but flying without reference to a horizon. Interesting, right? Next one, no weather briefing. Anybody remember the days? I say remember the days because we're so spoiled with ForeFlight, which I'll be sharing more about tomorrow. Remember the days where you'd call a briefer and anybody ever heard the magic words, VFR flight not recommended? Show of hands, anybody ever heard those words? Type in me in the chat if that's you. VFR flight not recommended. If a flight service station agent told me the words VFR flight not recommended, I didn't go flying those days. That's just me. This is an aviation weather expert. If they tell me the weather's not good enough to fly, I am just not going flying that day. No instrument rating. Like we said, he started his instrument training, had some rough going on the first few lessons, but no instrument rating was actually earned. Next, refusing the CFI's help. This is like the biggest kicker to me. If I'm a flight instructor, right? I'm a flight instructor and I offer, hey, let me tag along with you. I'm not looking to make money. I'm not looking for a free ride or anything like that. I'm looking to keep you safe is what I'm looking to do. Those words, I want to do it alone. I bet those words still to this day, if that flight instructor is still alive, haunt that poor flight instructor. It's the last thing he heard from JFK Jr. I want to do it alone. And they hung up the phone. It's crazy. How about the last one here? A failure to divert. By the way, look at all the me's on the YouTube chat. The failure to divert. I told you earlier in the simulation, one thing I want you to watch for is how many airports we pass. So I did some research. I followed the exact route. I overlaid it in SkyVector. I then ran a test. I said I want public airports that have a beacon, have pilot-controlled lighting at least, and have fuel. No grass strips. If you don't have lights, if you don't have fuel, it didn't count in the database. Along his exact route of flight, and by the way, I took it a step further. I gave him 10 miles to his left and 10 miles to his right. That was the window that I gave him. Remember that for a good portion of the right, Long Island didn't even fit into that because it was beyond 10 miles in some cases. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. 57 airports. We passed along our route of flight, 10 miles left or 10 miles right. 57 airports that had a beacon, had lights, had fuel, were public. 57 chances to land. 57 chances to land, divert, call my Lear 25 pilot, call my helicopter pilot and say, listen, I don't like this. Can you come pick me up and take me along? I'll pay you whatever it takes to make this work. 57 chances. and ultimately it leads to our accident. I display it this way because for most of these, if you take any of these away, you either break the chain or you greatly increase the chain. If we say I have a broken ankle and I don't go flying, perhaps JFK Jr. is alive today. If we earned our instrument rating and gained more nighttime, maybe that flight is successful and JFK Jr. is alive today. If we take our CFI up and say, listen, absolutely, come along with me, JFK Jr. could be alive today. So I want to ask you a question, and I'll share one more fact. What would you have done differently? Let me know on Facebook, on YouTube, what would you have done differently? That's what I want to know here. What would you have done differently in this scenario? And one other interesting fact, as I told you, they recovered the airplane from the bottom of the ocean. It took them plenty of time to do it. When they pulled it up and they dried everything out and reviewed the radios and any instrumentation they could, they actually found the COM1 radio was 1 digit off the frequency for Providence approach. Meaning, maybe JFK Jr. knew he was kind of getting into a jam here, looking up some frequencies. Maybe he was about to reach out for help. Maybe he thought he tuned to it, was trying to talk to him, but wasn't getting anything because he was 1 digit off. Maybe he was 1 digit away from clicking it over to talk to Providence when it was both hands on the yoke because he was losing control of that airplane. Again, an interesting new fact that has recently surfaced. Let's go over to YouTube first, see what would you all have done differently is the question that we're asking. Bill Potter says it's a no-go decision based on day and time of weather. Someone said I have my jet take me there. Call for the Learjet. Absolutely here. Walter says this is a no-fly situation. I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Tiffany said, shocked that we have about the same amount of experience. I consider myself such a beginner. I love that attitude, Tiffany. Now put yourself, you feel like you have to be there. You're flying a Piper Saratoga, for goodness sakes. That's a lot of airplane. Rob on YouTube said flying overload here. Thomas over on Facebook absolutely said, look down, get that frequency, maybe lost orientation. Yeah, very well could be. Vincent said he would have gone with his CFI. John said he wouldn't have flown. Brett West said he wouldn't have gone or would have flown with the CFI. No go for Tyler. That's another thing. Tyler, good point. Talking about the pain level of the ankle. We don't know. The toxology was never released, but doctors, we're my doctors that deal with broken bones here. You break an ankle that requires surgery. 23 days later, are you still on pain medications for such a thing as well? Could have also played into it. I don't know. Again, there is no toxology report. It literally does not exist. So, at least to the public, I don't know those answers to all of that here. Susan said, drive to a port in Rhode Island, call for the jet, definitely no fly. And how could you even fly with a boot? Yeah, you're right. Slash, Jer said, take the CFI, please. As a fellow CFI, he gets it. I mean, this leads me to talking about the PAVE checklist. We talked about the I'm safe checklist, but what about the PAVE checklist, which is P, the pilot? How are you the pilot? Do you have a broken ankle? You probably shouldn't go flying. Are you on medications? You probably shouldn't go flying. How are you the pilot in the aircraft? Are you proficient in the Piper Saratoga? How is the aircraft? Is it current? Is it equipped for the type of flight you're about to go on? We take the V from the word environment. How is the environment? Well, it's 4 statute miles and haze. The temperature and the dew point are 1 degree apart from each other and the sun is setting. It's not getting any better. And the big kicker for me is the E, the external pressures. I'm JFK Jr. Everyone is expecting me to be at this wedding. I need to give a toast. I already RSVP'd. I would be there. Everyone is expecting me. It is so difficult and so challenging. This is the reason we have the commercial pilot certificate, because dealing with the external pressure of money adds a very unique equation to flying. But even as a private pilot, there's the external pressures to get somewhere, to take that friend or that passenger flying. You can still fly, for a business trip or whatever it may be, even as a private pilot, which adds undue pressure. My CFIs out there will understand this. Teaching flying is not the difficult part. Teaching you the ground even is not the hardest part. The hardest part is teaching good, smart, go and no-go decision making. That is absolutely the most difficult part of this, is teaching students how to make good decisions. Excuse me a second. Every student is so different. And some really get it, some are more conservative, some scare me, a little bit. And it's the hardest thing to teach is good decision making. I want you confident, but I don't want you cocky. You see, 91.3 in the Code of Federal Regulations is pilot and command responsibility. It says you have the final authority as the safety of this flight and have the confidence to be able to use 91.3 and know it, but not the cockiness to abuse it. And there's a big difference between the two. I've said this a lot lately. You must humble yourself in aviation, or aviation will humble you. With that, I want to open it up to your questions. I want to share a few little things with you first as well. If you are stuck in quarantine, you're thinking about getting into flying, if you don't have a copy of our book, The Private Pilot Blueprint, it is yours totally free. privatepilotblueprint.com. It's everything I wish someone would have told me before I started my flight training. We are still shipping these out. We'll ship them out to you free. All I ask is you pay $6.95 for shipping and handling. And Sarah is still going in the office on occasion to get these shipped out by hand, personally to you. Privatepilotblueprint.com. Everything I wish someone would have told me before I started my flight training, how to save time and money through that entire process. If you have a check ride coming up as well, we do have our audiobooks. Pass your private pilot check ride, pass your instrument pilot check ride. By the way, check this out. Last time I took a screenshot, 382 5-star reviews. So thank you for that. Just search M0A or private pilot, instrument pilot check ride, or Jason Shepard on Audible, and that will come up so you can check that out for your quarantine reading and listening. Written test coming up. We have an entire FAA written test prep boot camp. PassMyWritten.com to check that out. Again, you're stuck at home. This is the time to make this happen. And of course, we have our complete online ground school, groundschoolacademy.com. You can actually take a trial of that by going to M0A, the spelled out version, MZEROA trial.com, M0Atrial.com to take a trial of that. If you're just looking to pursue proficiency and mastery, also do check out the podcast, like I mentioned, the Private Pilot Podcast, the Instrument Pilot Podcast, the Commercial Pilot Podcast, and the Flight Instructor Podcast as well. While you are stuck at home, so much to do. We're continuing to put out great content. Subscribe to us here on YouTube, like us on Facebook, hit up that map there, that badge there for following us on Instagram for behind the scenes stories as well. Not as much in the studio with our stay at home quarantine, but still making in there occasionally and still hopping on the story there as well. So just some exciting things to, excuse me, share with you all. I know you are stuck at home, and I believe there's one of two options with this. You can use this time to prep for that check ride that may have gotten postponed, to prep for that written test, to better yourself as a pilot. You can use these next 30 days to brush up on your ground studies, or you can use these next 30 days to become the world's foremost expert on the Tiger King. The option is yours. I would choose ground school and written test prep and podcasts and audiobooks. I haven't seen Tiger King yet. I've only seen the memes on Facebook. But I promise you, this is the time. You're questioning your career in aviation, your career switch, your choice of a hobby, whatever it is, this will come back. This too shall pass. This is the time to buckle down, get with your studies, and use this time stuck at home wisely. Just my 2 cents. Not here to preach or anything like that. Last little thing that I do want to open it up to your questions. I know, given the current circumstances, it is a crazy, difficult time to be marketing a cruise. However, we have in October our Aviation Mastery at Sea. and it is going to be absolutely outstanding. My good friend Steve-O-One Knievo is joining us October 26th to the 31st out of Fort Lauderdale for 5 days of just outstanding aviation activities. Going to Coco Cay and Labadee, Royal Caribbean's 2 private islands. Volleyball tournament, Jason versus Steve-O. Choose your team wisely. Then on October 28th, all day worth of seminars, my opening keynote, Steve-O sharing his top 3 scariest flights. And then here's the cool part, we're diving into some breakout sessions. I want you to bring your non-flying co-pilots, your non-flying spouse, your non-flying partner, best friend, whoever that may be, right? We are launching our co-pilot course. And while you are learning for-flight secrets or in-flight emergencies during your breakout session, your co-pilot, your non-flying co-pilot is going to go to their breakout session, which is the co-pilot course. And this isn't just, hey, my spouse, my partner, whatever, had a medical emergency, I need to land the airplane. We're going to cover that, certainly. This is how you and your spouse or partner or pilot and co-pilot can be an asset to one another in the cockpit. It's how to pre-flight, how to tie down the airplane, how to pull up the charts in for-flight to help out, how to make the basic check-in radio calls. Hey, 23 Mike Zulu, level 5000. 23 Mike Zulu, Cal altimeter 3025. 25 Mike Zulu. And change the altimeter for you. Like, that's the level of crew resource management we're looking to build through the 2 days of breakout sessions with your co-pilot as well. Families that fly together, stay together. Write that down. That might be good on helping you sell your non-flying co-pilot on going on the cruise with us. So also my good friend now, Brennan Edwards, will be joining us. He is like the 4th most expert in drone flying. He's going to be sharing what he does with Netflix and Hulu. If you've seen any drone shots there, he is the guy that did them. So we'll be sharing that. Again, VFR, IFR, drones, and co-pilot breakout sessions all happen. You can make it to all of them as well if you wish. So just some very, very cool stuff happening. All I have left is our early bird pricing that is good till April 30th. It's $1,275 per person, and you make payments on that. You put a $100 deposit down, and you make payments until it's paid off before the cruise. So you can check all that out. We don't need all that money up front. It is simply you make payments on it. I'm actually sold out of the diamond level now. We continue to sell despite all this COVID-19 news. This was dinner with Steve-O and myself and VIP seating and some other great stuff. That's actually sold out now. Aviationmastery.com if you want to check that out. Aviationmastery.com. Again, I know it is a crazy time to be marketing a cruise, yet I talk to the travel agent on a weekly basis, and we still have about 10 people signing up every single week. Like her exact words, the travel agent's exact words are, Jason, your pilots are a relentless bunch. And you absolutely are. It's not till October. We are flattening the curve. We are making this thing go away. That is that. Anyways, it's your time for questions. Why is it the first thing I look at YouTube, I see Jason Exotic from Roy D. I get the reference. Haven't seen Tiger King yet, but apparently I need to. After I finish my ground studies and everything else with what I'm working on as well. Some books, some other great things for you all. Anyways, let's see. Questions, comments. Let's take those here. Jay Breezy 101 said, a great question. I hope Jason answers it. Which question was it? I am happy to answer that question over on YouTube. Copy and paste it again for me so I can see it. Excited for all of you who are joining us on the cruise. Walter, thank you for the kind words. All right, Christian on YouTube. Jason, I'm a private pilot. I haven't flown in a while. I want to start my instrument training. What do you think I should work on before starting to take flying lessons? So I'm a private pilot. Listen, instrument flying, Christian, is all about this. This is the time, by the way. It's all about the ground knowledge. Really, it's about 2 things, radio communications and the ground-based knowledge. You already know how to fly the airplane. Now it's time to add a new skill to the equation with that. Now it's time to put the ground studies in. Most anybody on this webinar will tell you that's done it and had success with it. Do your ground training first and then hop in the airplane for instrument. The airplane is a terrible classroom. It is expensive, It is going through the air at 110 knots. There is no pause button. Learn approaches on the ground. Learn approaches on the simulator. Learn holds on the ground. And then go apply them in the air. Because in a simulator on the ground, I can pretend and make up 6 approaches back to back to back. In the airplane, 3 approaches is like a 1.8. Ask anybody who's an instrument flying right now. A 1.8 instrument flight, you will sleep 10 hours the next day. You'll be that tired. Ground studies first, my friend. And that's not just coming, hey, Jason, you have a ground school, you have a bias. That is the data, that is the facts. You want to save time and money? Get the ground training done first. You want a higher score on the written test? Get the ground training done first. Jeremy, thank you, said, I've read the entire Private Pilot Blueprint already. What are some other good books to read? Jeremy, I shared the Audible as well, but if you want to grab Pass Your Private Pilot Check Ride, written in question and answer form, you can grab that on Amazon, or you can grab the audiobook version read by myself on Audible. I talked to Eric Deagle on Facebook. He's trying to listen at 2 times speed, which is impossible based on how fast I've been talking lately. Let's see here. Joe in Richmond, Virginia, it is done, my friend. Haven't announced it just yet, but it is done. So thank you for checking in on that. Dave, thank you for that. Brian, is it still possible to get a job with an airline with 3 letters of disapproval, 1 for private, 2 for IFR? Brian, you just need to be honest with them about it. First off, Brian, I need to ask you a question, which is why? Was it on the oral? Was it on the flight? What can we improve? Maybe you say, Jason, I just get so nervous, I can't handle it. My friend, let me coach you through it. Let me help you through it. I would love for you to reach out. We are here to serve you with that. Maybe you're not putting in the study time that you need to. I would probably guess that's not the case. Maybe you're just a nervous test taker. Maybe you need more mock check rides in your life. Maybe you need to slow down and breathe a little bit too. Will the airlines still take you? Yes, my friend, the airlines will still take you, but they're gonna ask why, and your answer needs to be solid. I'm sorry, I'm just a very, very nervous test taker. I know the information, I pass everything. I'm just a nervous test taker, whatever that may be. Your reason needs to be strong, my friend. Rebel asks, what happened to the Bonanza I picked up a few months ago from the Beach Factory? I was sharing a lot with Instagram. Hasn't been flown in a while. It's still in Ocala, I believe, right now. Bill Potter said, for the volleyball game, how tall is Steve-O? Steve-O is, I'm not going to tell you. I want you to pick the right team. It says, how tall is Steve-O is since you're 6'5". This is, I'm 6'4". I'm just going to stand at the net like this. That's what I'm going to do. Steve-O is not, he's like 5'9", maybe? You have to ask Steve-O. I don't know. Let's head over to Facebook and take some questions. Coach Ray says he's a nervous test taker. I get it, man. I was there. I still can be there as well. Let me see. Daniel on Facebook, is there any audio available from the JFK Jr. flight? Not that's been released. There's some transcripts, but not that's actually been released. There really isn't much audio. The United pilot getting cut off, and that's really about it. Jack on Facebook says, what is the first flight you're going to do when the stay-at-home orders relax? What do you miss most about flying? So 23 Mike Zulu is at the paint shop right now. I'm hoping to post an update on that. Hoping to fly the Technum down to the paint shop to give you guys an update on that. Somewhere fun. I want to see the sun. We go for walks and everything else around our neighborhood, and that's really about it. I want to get back out there and fly, and it'll probably be in the Technum just because that's what's up and flying now. Maybe in the Cub. We'll have to see. It's going to be fun. Let's see. Todd? Absolutely not. Todd on YouTube says 25, too old to start a career in the airlines. Absolutely not, my friend. Hit the ground running. Please. I've answered that question for individuals starting at 45, and the answer even at 45 is no. You hit the ground running and go to it. 40s, 50s is not too old to start a career in aviation. Now, airlines have a mandatory retirement at 65, but you can be a flight instructor as long as you can pass the medical. You can be a corporate pilot as long as you can pass the medical. So just keep that in mind as well. All right. Let's see. Taking more questions. Bill Krause asks, why 2 watches? Bill Krause, you're on YouTube. Go watch the very first Fun Friday video 2 Fridays ago. We answer that question there. I get asked that a lot. I answered that question there. Let's see. Mark, again, great to see you. Mark has told us, Mark's in the Chicagoland area. FAA has told us not to fly. Mark, and I also there's like 2 incidents up there recently with some stuff. It's crazy right now, my friend. It is absolutely crazy out there, my friend. Sam, what is the most common reason students fail their private pilot check ride? Sam, I'm going to be a politician for a second. I'm going to answer that question how I want to answer it, and then I'll answer your question, I promise. Here's how I want to answer it. The real issue with a private pilot check ride isn't the failure. I want to rephrase it. The reason most students get turned away for any check ride is they don't meet the requirements in their logbook, or they think they have the requirements, they don't. They're short hours, they're short cross-country flights, they're short this, they're short that. I was talking to 2 check ride examiners 2 weeks ago. They shared with me over 50% of the check rides they have booked never happen. Well, they happen, they show up, excuse me, they go through the logbook and the students are missing hours and both go home, no check ride in hand. It's happened to me before. Make sure your logbooks are in order, please, before you get the examiners involved. Next, the most common reason people fail their check ride. There isn't really one big thing. Now, yes, you miss the runway, land in the grass, you land short, you really screw something up, you're gonna fail. The majority of check ride failures are many small things compounded. You're doing a steep turn and you gain 300 feet, it's not an instant failure if you're willing to fix it, right? Now you continually fly 300 feet, you're probably gonna fail. You bust 300 feet, you come back down, you fix it, you end up with intolerances. They're not crazy about it. It's an average, it's a C+, but you're with intolerance. But it's these tiny deviations over and over and over again, on top of maybe a poor oral exam, is when you end up failing the check ride. You don't fail the oral check ride on one big question. You fail it on many questions, many small questions, incorrect. Remember the power of saying, I don't know, but I know where to look it up. And you have to really know where to look it up. That's a powerful statement. And they're going to give you that get out of jail free card 2, 3, maybe 4 times. I show up to my check rides. I used to bring these 2 big milk crates of every aviation book I own. I would set them down, I'd stack them up this tall, and I had them dog-eared, highlighted, folded. They looked like they were drugged behind a truck, everything else. They were well used, just to show you know your stuff and you know where to look it up. I remember, off topic now, I had a student show up to a check ride. This is probably 10, 15 years ago now. Show up to a check ride, told him to bring his FAR aim. He brought his FAR aim. It was still in the shrink wrap. I remember thinking, this check ride examiner is gonna be so mad if you show up and your FAR aim is still in the shrink wrap. He goes, what? But I brought my FAR aim, thinking you haven't used it. This is gonna sound bad, so please forgive me. This is old Jason. You're talking to new Jason now. I literally opened up the FAR aim. I went outside to the parking lot. I put the cover against the asphalt and scraped it a few times to kind of scratch up the cover a little bit, folded a few pages and everything else, and made some highlight, went to 91-205 and highlighted it to make it look like his FAR aim was at least used. I don't recommend that. Really use your real wear and tear is much better than artificial wear and tear. He passed his check ride, by the way. But again, that's the behind the scenes stories with that. Let me see. All right, let's see. More questions, more comments here. James, did you hear about my instrument checker doing an NDB approach? Yeah, NDB approaches. It would take me some thinking to get an NDB approach done again, for sure. Let's go over to Facebook. Mike McKnight, you know we will not forget our corrosion treatments, my friend with that. Telvin said, Jason, you fly the Caribbean? I would love to fly the Caribbean. Adam Saylor, no, the Bonanza is buddies of mine, not mine. Thomas, yes, JFK Jr. did have an autopilot and or wing leveler. He could have flipped on. I don't believe he knew how to use it, is my belief. I can't confirm that. Let's see. Jim Wallace says, Jason, the question was, I have 100 hours when I stop When will I stop being so nervous and scared and more comfortable? Jim, it's like the advice I gave earlier. First off, it will come with time. You need to get a lot of flights back to back. You can say I have 100 hours, but is 100 hours spread over 5 years? Because that's not a lot of flight time. We need to get some like every other day flights and baby steps. Let's say in the pattern one flight, then let's go to the next closest airport, then the next closest airport, then both those airports. Let's shut the airplane off, get lunch, pre-flight again, start it up again, and come back. Baby steps with all of this. I don't mind that you're nervous. Nervousness is a good thing. I have done hundreds, if not thousands, of seminars. I've done definitely thousands of webinars. I still get a little nervous before I go live, before I do that. I think it was Jim. It's when you go flying and you don't get a little bit nervous, that's when I get worried. That's when you should be worried, my friend. Still to this day, I'll go flying, and there's something, I'm actually working on a new book. I don't want to reveal a whole lot, but it'll be coming out in the coming months. And one of the things I'm working on is this idea of something called the fighter pilot's prayer. And it is basically most fighter pilots before they go out on a mission, it's essentially, please don't let me screw this up. And they're humble enough to know that I can screw this up. And they're nervous enough to know that I need to be on my game. But you still have to be confident. You can't let the nerves overtake you to a place where you are not confident in your own skills. There has to be a balance between a little bit of nerves and a lot of confidence, but that confidence cannot flow over into cockiness. But I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous before my flights. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous before a seminar or a webinar or anything like that. And that's the honest truth. This goes for anybody. When you stop getting nervous, just the time, I'm talking 1%, to get in an airplane, you need to take a step backwards and go, wait a second, this thing could seriously hurt me. And it deserves just a little bit more respect than I'm giving it right now. Because that's when people get hurt in an airplane or a helicopter or anything along those lines. So that is that. There's the one and only Steve-O One Knievo. Steve-O, thank you for joining us again. Steve-O joining us on the Aviation Mastery at Sea cruise. Steve-O, everyone was asking how tall you are, by the way. They want to know, they're trying to pick which volleyball team they want to be on. So I told them you're like 5'2". I couldn't remember. So hopefully you guys head over to Steve-O's volleyball team. We'll see. Anyways, Steve will be sharing some great stuff on the cruise, a chance to really hang out as well. Steve-O, thank you for saying hi. Do make sure you subscribe, guys, to Steve-O's channel as well for some great, the lifestyle of flying. I'll summarize Steve-O's videos as. Let's see here. All right, thank you for the kind words on that advice. Again, it's good to be a little bit nervous here. All right, let's see. Bob Cam says, Joel says fly for food. Everybody like the controller Bob and Joel show? We're thinking about bringing that back. Joel just needs a cool name like that. So anyways, that is what we're working on. Steve Hammond, Jason, what was your worst or scariest flight experience? There's been a few. Worst or scariest? Engine failure on takeoff at about 400 feet in the Cessna 150. I shared that not too terribly long ago. Lost a cylinder, lost an exhaust manifold. That was quite scary. Had the actually flying. I used to be based up in the Massachusetts area for a year, flying out of New Bedford. Again, I've made a similar flight to JFK Jr. Night IFR to Martha's Vineyard, Hyannis, back to New Bedford. Never landed or even saw them. Night, snow, IFR, never saw them. Down to minimums, went miss. 4 approaches, went missed. Final time, we see the lights finally at New Bedford to land. Finally excited, pull the throttle back to idle. The engine quits. Carburetor ice. My instructor encourages me to turn on carburetor ice or carburetor heat, and the engine came roaring back to life. That's a little scary though when it's black on black, snow's blasting past the landing light, and the engine stops working at 300 feet when you think you see the runway. That was a little intimidating. Yeah, I had a recent scare flying the Piper Cub. So the Piper Cub does not have a radio. It's all a handheld radio, and there's an antenna that runs out, and there's a lot of adapters and cables. I was turning downwind to base, And I went, and the whole airplane, I mean, it's not the most graceful airplane. The whole airplane turns, the whole stick's this way. And I went to put the stick back, and it wouldn't go back. I was stuck in this like descending right-hand turn. The stick was jammed. And I looked down at the stick, thankfully, rather than trying to fight it. And obviously there's a lot of adapters and stuff that have to connect to the handheld radio. They had fallen out of the seat pocket and fallen down into where the stick, how we moved the stick, I can't think of, the floorboards basically, and had jammed. So I had to reach down there, I'm at 600 feet, and pull those out, and then I could move the stick. That was really my, talk about those nervous moments, my heart sank for a second in that moment. You have to humble yourself in aviation, or aviation will humble you. I truly, truly mean that when I say that here. So let's see. Murad on YouTube says, can't wait to go back to flight school. You and everyone else, my friend, you have to. It is going to be exciting to get back. Bob Cam, Controller Bob, says we have more videos coming. I can't wait, my friend. Jack also asked, why do I wear 2 watches? Again, head over to either Facebook or YouTube. Go watch the first Fun Friday video. I'll get the date. It was this month, I think, or last month. Late last month. You will see it, my friend. That will be cool. Controller Bob, I'll happily, he says the bucket list airplane is a Cub. Controller Bob, I can sell it to you. You just keep producing Controller Bob videos and we can talk. Let's see. Sean asked a similar question. Sean, I answered a similar question earlier, but I'll give you the summary. Again, finished private, want to start instrument, what can I do? Ground school now, my friend. Get the ground school done and make sure you're sharp on radio communications. And for this recording, go back like 20 minutes ago. It was one of the first questions I answered and gave a really detailed response there. Hey, David G on YouTube, great to see you. He loves the Controller Bob and Joel show. We just need a cool name for Joel. I feel like Controller Bob's a super cool name. Joel? We need like Captain Joel, like we need a cool name. So work with me on that one, M0 Nation, as well here. More questions, more comments. Again, we are here to serve you all. Anything we can do. Mike Murphy on Facebook, I would be honored to, my friend. Please reach out to myself or through the team. I'd be honored to take a look out of it. Jose, no, I went to Bridgewater State College. Now it's Bridgewater University for a year. Realized it was way too cold in Massachusetts, and then went back and then moved down to Jacksonville, where I met one of my flying mentors, Joel, who's watching this on Facebook, and Controller Bob. Didn't meet Controller Bob, just talked to him a lot, flying traffic. Didn't know he was that nice of a guy. All right. Let's see. Michael. Hey, Jason, any advice for me regarding private pilot? Past my knowledge with an 82%. Never sat foot in a GA airplane. Congratulations. What do I do now with this crazy pandemic, my friend? Keep your skills sharp. Get yourself on X-Plane or Flight Simulator 2020 is coming. And just learn some instrument scans, learn some basic things. Watch our YouTube videos, listen to the podcast. Stay immersed in it. Don't allow the principle of disuse to sneak in, my friend. It's one of the worst things you can do. Hey, Joel, over on YouTube, Dr. Bucko is the username, suggested Jet Pilot Joel. I mean, that'd be super cool. I think that's a good name. Let me see. How many, Terry Haskins says, how many flight schools will not survive the shutdowns across the country? I don't even like to think about it. It's going to happen, unfortunately. There's going to be a few, and it's going to be really, really sad. Go look at the flight schools listed for sale right now. It's gone up. Yeah, it's not. Listen, I've said this every live stream so far, so I apologize if you've heard me say this already, but sometimes repetition is the mother of skill, and you hear things again and again, and it sinks in. In every adversity, there's a seed of a greater or equivalent advantage. I need you to be looking for that opportunity for yourself. What is that advantage? What is that opportunity? Maybe it's the great deal you can get on an airplane right now. Maybe it's the flight school that'll cut you a deal on some hours with some block time. Maybe it's this is my time. Take 30 days, I'm at home to get that written test done, get that check ride studying done. Whatever that may be for you in your aviation journey, there is an advantage, as weird and crazy as all of that sounds, to this. I encourage you to really, really seek that out right now. I want you operating from a place of wisdom. And that can be hard to do if you're watching way too much news right now. No knock on the news or anything like that, but fill your mind with something positive. Fill your mind with aviation knowledge is where you should be going right now. Jack in Connecticut, great to see you. All right. Phil, great to see you. George says, any AOPA or FAA guidance on flying solo with COVID-19? I haven't seen any. Again, my advice is operate from a place of wisdom. Here's the weird thing, and I'm surprised I haven't been asked this question just yet. Like, I've been asked every other live stream, what's my opinion of should we be flying right now? Here's my opinion. And flight school owners, I hope I don't offend anybody, but this is my personal opinion. First off, we have to follow CDC and World Health Organization guidelines and any state and local governmental guidelines, and certainly federal, if that should become a thing. So please be following that first and foremost. The interesting thing is aviation was listed as an essential business. Airports were an essential business. So flight school said, well, if aviation and airports are essential business, our flight school is an essential business. And I think what they meant when they made the broad stroke of aviation and airports, they meant like airline travel, I believe is what they meant with that. I love general aviation and I love flight training, but I don't think flight training is an essential business right now, given our current circumstances. And I'm sorry if that ruffles some feathers and upsets some people. It's just, this will pass. Don't worry. It's just my professional 2 cents. If I'm flying, it's either with someone who I know is practicing good social distancing and quarantine, or it's by myself right now. You know, I have 2 parents who I want to see this Easter that are probably watching this. They're in their mid to upper 50s. I have 2 young children, a 2 soon to be 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. I just don't need to be exposing people to this stuff. That is my personal opinion, by the way. So take that for what that is. What's that worth? Let's answer some more questions, some more comments. James said, other than a Cessna, what other planes do you like to train pilots in? Listen, there's some phenomenal trainers out there. I'm a big fan of the old J3 Cub stick and rudder skills. The exact flip side opposite of that is you would be amazed at what Cirrus is doing right now with their track program, bringing Cirrus into the training environment as well. We have this stigma, the stereotype of Cirrus as these luxury Ferrari-like aircraft, and they can be phenomenal trainers as well. And the Cirrus Track, TRAC program is working to break down those barriers too. Like there's many, many good trainers out there. You can have a little J3 Cub, a little Cessna 150, or the Cirrus Track trainer. Like it depends on your mission, your goal. You know, if you want to be that airline pilot, flying glass panels, that track trainer is the way to go. If you're happy just being in GA, a little Piper Cub, there's something romantic about flying a Piper Cub. So again, just my professional opinion. Rebel Yell 22 is the username. Say, guys, private in a 182. Absolutely, you can do that. It's another super airplane to do such a thing in. Fiat Boxing asks, is the CFI course coming soon? Not as soon as I want, my friend, and I do apologize for that. We have some systems in place that are going to be increasing that, but I can't make any promises with that. FOI is done, though. So let's see. All right. Looking for some more questions. Yes, Lesa, I believe is how I say it, on Facebook. This video will be saved as soon as they encode it on Facebook, on YouTube, so you can catch it later as well. John said, what's it like flying with a side stick in a Cirrus? It is awesome. Here's my only gripe. I did my CFII in an SR20. I'm talking like the original 6-pack and Avidyne MFD, like the original G1 SR20s. CFII, excuse me. CFII, I'm sitting in the right seat. I am right-handed. So I'm like, this is awesome, until I have to copy down my clearance. Then I have to go, or a long IFR route change. I'm flying, my instructor's not letting me use the autopilot. I fly with my left hand, and I'm writing down my clearance like this. That's my only complaint, trying to fly with my left hand while writing something down. I don't know if it would have been easier to learn to write with my left hand. I don't know if I'd be able to, I can't hold a pen with my left hand. Ambidextrous people are going to have an advantage, CFII and SR, any of the SR series. It's a lot of fun, though. It actually comes very intuitive. I recently just flew one as well. It's a very intuitive plane to fly. You'd be impressed with that. Jim Wallace, you're right. Cherokee 180s are awesome. Slash, JR says, train in the glider. I love it. Jerry, you know my kids will be the 15-year-olds one day soloing in a glider for sure. And it's one of my goals as well here. Let me see. Controller Bob wants to know, why do we buy the Tecnam? My goal with the Tecnam was to not only build up my own multi-engine time a little bit more, film some G1000 videos, some multi-engine videos, get the team some multi-engine time there as well. Phil says, good elbow cough. It's a dry cough, I promise. I went with the elbow. Yeah, I'm a slow learner, but I learn, right? Let's see here. All right. I'm going to take a few more, guys, then it's getting a little bit late. Although streaming from the home makes it easier because it's just done, and then right back to work or head over to bed after this. No driving home from the studio or anything like that. A few more questions I'll take. Someone said they're looking hard at the TrueTrack Autopilot. We love our TrueTrack Autopilot, my friend. Robert says he wants a Carbon Cub for fun. I flew a Carbon Cub with Mike Kennedy and some of his gang out at Oshkosh this year. It's incredible. I want one. It doesn't make sense fiscally or anything, but boy, is a lot of fun. My 2 cents with that. Let's see, Paul Garth, suggestion to really master weather. Lido's flight service relates to flight planning. Go no, absolutely. I love Paul. I love Lido's flight service station. Phenomenal service. I use the online version, 1-800-WXBrief.com, more than anything. Phenomenal service here. Operation. Jack says just had some rotorcraft operations. He's now left-handed. Yeah, I get it, man. I totally understand it. Chris Stater says he loves his Dakota. That Dakota is a super. That's a hauler right there. That's a fun little airplane. Catherine, have a great night. Thank you. Lacey asked if we're hiring instructors. Lacey, we actually, with the coronavirus now, we just said we're kind of going on a hiring freeze. Right now, we're continuing to train and work with the phenomenal team that we have, but we have been hiring a lot lately. Please keep in mind, Lacey, we are not a traditional flight school. We teach, you couldn't come to us and take flight lessons, so if you work for us, it's not like a flying every single day job. Oddly enough, it's a lot of desk work, it's a lot of video work, it's a lot of, gosh, I wish some of the team were on right now. They could tell you, we're doing a couple thousand live chats a month now, a couple hundred phone calls every month. We are just, our instructors are blessed to be helping everybody out so much, especially during this time. We do a lot of flying, but we're not a traditional flight school. We support our ground school members, as many of them on here can tell you all about that. So, can you get your commercial before your instrument? B. Evans says, absolutely you can. You just have some limitations on that, such as the 50 nautical mile rule with that, and not at night for hire. But you can, if like banner towing is a popular thing people will do with that. Eric Pittman, good to see you. Which one of your watches is in Zulu time? Right-hand watch. It's the Breitling Aerospace. You know, it's only appropriate to put the actual aviation watch in Zulu time. That's appropriate, right? Let me see. All right. So many 2 watch questions. Again, go watch 2 Fun Friday videos ago. Amanda, if you're still watching this, we need to make that, we need to push that video more. So we got so many 2 watch questions with that. Awesome. All right. Listen, let's wrap this up. Any questions? Post a comment. I'll read these comments again in the morning as well. If not, come back tomorrow. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'm doing my 4-flight weather briefings. How I get a weather briefing via 4-flight. We'll pick somewhere with really crummy weather. I know New York, you're getting some terrible weather right now. We'll see if it's the same way tomorrow. We're going to deal with some real weather as well with that. Maybe some fictitious flight planning as well. Seahawk, thank you for hopping in the ground school as well. Listen, this is a time to operate from a place of wisdom. You can be knocking out your written test, you can be knocking out your check, whatever you're studying for, getting ready for that instrument rating, or you can be the master of the Tiger King. I say it tongue-in-cheek and jokingly, but it's the honest truth. You all have been such a blessing to us. during this crazy economic time, this crazy teleworking time, everything else, this is our opportunity to be a blessing to you. Thus, these new live streams, thus our support team really stepping it up. Family takes care of family, and you all are our family. And this is our time to take care of you. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything. I truly mean anything we can do this week, this month, to help make you a safer, smarter pilot. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and most importantly, remember, the good pilot is always learning. Have a great night, guys. We'll see ya.